it's always interesting to see how much freer they seem in it. And it's a great way of bringing guys in that aren't as comfortable. They'll like just be walking by the room, hear
Yeah.
a bunch of guys laughing,
Mhm.
and they're like, and then I mean, I'll literally watch them. They're like not really looking like they were about to walk in, but then just kind of turn and come in. And so that's a great, I think having that kind of environment is really good for them. And I think the coaches recognize that. As I talk to the coaches, they continue to say like it's great that the guys have something to kind of break up their intense times of um, school and soccer. So
This is the Soccer Chaplains United podcast from the Touchline. I'm Rev Brad. It's the month of October, and all month long, we're featuring different chaplains that work with Soccer Chaplains United. Today, special guest Ben Pflederer. He is the volunteer chaplain for the Colorado Rapids Developmental Academy. This is part 2 of my interview with Ben. Ben is the youth coordinator at Denver Presbyterian Church. He's almost done with a Master of Divinity degree from Denver Seminary, and we really enjoy having Ben on our team. We get into it today. We've got a little bit more with Ben talking about his work with the Academy. He talks a little bit about his hobbies and passions. Some of them I find really intriguing. And also, we get a game with Crosses with Rev. You don't want to miss it, so don't go anywhere. Press fast forward if you have to. Press, click, play, whatever it is. We get into it right after this.
He's found the space and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made him ends, and they have. He has the hat-trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat-trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post. And you're the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Yeah, and even though it's once a week, right, it's so much better than just spending that deadhead time into a phone or, the other things, sometimes getting in trouble somewhere else in the stadium or wherever school or training's going on, right? But I think this too, Ben, right? Like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but sometimes I feel like with the academy athletes, they know that they're loved in a different way. Coach gives them the hard instruction and they've got to take that. They've got to receive it, right? It's not always easy, but sometimes I think it helps to know that there's people that care about them, that support them. Sometimes we have to challenge them too. We have to exhort them to rise up, which can be hard, but I do notice that every once in a while as I walk through the stadium during the week, after a training session or at a first team home match, and the academy boys are there, they always love getting a fist bump. They always love like telling me like, hey, this happened this week. Or, like, I scored a goal, or hey, Chaplain Ben, like we played this game. Like, this, so it's like they get to be for a minute, they get to be a boy. They get to be a young man that doesn't have all that stuff around them. So I think that's a unique space for them to have a gift, really.
absolutely.
Yeah. Ben, thinking about the students that you work with at the church in the youth group and these academy boys, pressure being one thing, like this proximity to being a pro soccer player. Are there any other similarities that you see students facing these days that you would say, yeah, these guys have it too and it's amplified? Or is there anything different where you think, yeah, they have this, but they don't really have this over here? Like, is there any of that you'd say, for those that are listening, they go, oh, this really is different for some of these young guys in the academy?
So differences in between the high school youth at the church and these high school age guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, I mean, there's definitely a certain maturity that the guys, the academy guys show that seems pretty different. And I think for obvious reasons that they're just, kind of understand the stakes a little bit of how they carry themselves or, kind of what they do. Um, so there's some of that, and that helps a lot usually for stay, where guys are used to like being like really quiet, dialed in, like respecting, you know, the person talking, whether that's a coach or whoever. So I think that that seems different. Whereas a lot of the youth group kids, you know, might hate school and not respect school, and so they're used to like, oh, I'm just trying to ignore or uh, talk during something. Like they're just not used to that kind of respect, that maturity, and it's kind of like, you know, there aren't any consequences for them for the most part. So that's a big difference, kind of I think in maturity that I can see a good bit. I think there is an interesting similarity in how they both sides, like a lot of the guys as I've gotten the academy guys that I've gotten to know more and more, like a ton of them will call, you know, say they're Christians or they believe in God. That's, you know, the words they'll use to me. And but we'll, you know, just ask them some really basic questions. Like we were doing a study and was like, who knows what a Pharisee is?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
not a that's even someone who had the guy saw the check. He was like, "No, the Pharisees. They were in season one." And I was like, "You mean the
The
chosen?" And I was
chosen.
like, and I mean, he literally took like 60 seconds to think about it. It was like, "Yeah, like the Pharisees and the Gentiles." And I was like, "Those aren't like they're not. You're thinking of opposite." Anyway, so like just the kind of lack of, I mean, yeah, biblical knowledge, even for those that, you know, whether in the church or not in the church, um, don't have, which I would start to chalk up to just a lot of other distractions, a lot of other demands, and just not as much of habits of reading,
Yeah.
or wanting to read. And so that seems really consistent. And just in addition to that, how many other voices they have, just so many things that are feeding them information just constantly through their social media, through a lot of different friends, and so yeah, it is interesting from time to time how I think I try to think of them as different and be like, oh, I got, but they are all ultimately just, you know, teenagers
Sure.
and share a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses. Let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. I think sometimes one of the things I've noticed is that, especially the boys that are doing the school at the stadium, they're missing, like there's no girls. So maybe that creates less drama. Maybe it creates a different kind of drama elsewhere that I don't really get to see. But I was in a session recently and a group thing with some of the first teamers, and we were talking about, I think prom came up, and a couple of the homegrown kids, the academy kids, were like, "Yeah, I didn't do prom. I didn't have prom." Like, and it's like, "Oh, okay. So you have missed some of these culturally, some of these more poignant or significant school moments. You know, the high school graduation or the prom or homecoming. These things for you don't exist. You're sacrificing these for the game." And I, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And I think sometimes I've wondered, do the academy boys realize like how different it kind of is for them? Like in that they don't have this same sense of even schooling or the season. Like it's kind of nonstop in these kinds of things. And I think too that's a space where, with compassion, how do we care for people in that space, right? That becomes a challenge.
Yeah, it is. I think it's hard for me to appreciate at times how different. I realize this talking to a guy that has been injured for a while. He's on the 16s team, and he was talking about how he hasn't been in school. Like he didn't actually like graduate from middle school. Like he didn't finish out middle school even. Like he's just been playing academy or travel soccer year round, you know, for 2, 3 years. Um, so that was interesting to me to think about what that might imply for, yeah, just like missing all of that. I can't remember comment the guy made, but just kind of saying that he recognized it's
Mm.
like, yeah, I don't have the school experience, but this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that that is such an interesting thing of how different of an experience it is from all the other kids that are in school, and yeah, I don't think they realize what they're missing, which it's kind of like, is it a big deal or not? Hard to say. They'll
Yeah.
have plenty of their
Yeah.
own memories of the significance of what they experienced with their teams and all their development, but
So
definitely different.
a lot of people might be wondering too, like what comes after the academy. You have some of the boys go on to college. They'll get a college scholarship to play soccer. They can continue their education. Some will, make the jump to the pros, first team, or some will flash out. They'll try another academy. They'll try another program. They'll go play at a lower division of soccer, maybe to keep going. How is it for you, just like in that space? And I know it's just year one, kind of, but you've already been through one, like a half season where guys were around that are no longer around. Um, are you starting to see any sort of patterns or things or ways that you go, yeah, this is why chaplaincy is necessary? Because for some, like they go into X, Y, and Z, and yeah, are you seeing anything yourself? Just even a few months into this.
Yeah, I've definitely had the thought, even very recently in the last few weeks, that it's it's such a gift to get to be there. That how like the guys don't seem to have. Yeah, I've only asked a handful, but they don't ever talk about or seem to have church community or church that they have any association with, anything like that. So just the fact that they are, and many of them aren't around their families. So that kind of being such an important part of being in a community of faith. Obviously, I don't think that a once a week meeting is going to, completely replace that, but also better than nothing. So I think having something to get a little bit of that experience and encourage them towards pursuing those community faiths, even if they can't do it right at this time, like while they're in the academy, that yeah, maybe if they are in a different stage in a year or two, that they would have kind of a different opportunity with a different schedule or rhythm. And yeah, seeing how many guys that, a couple guys that were a part of the group last year that are now with the R2 team more and more. So I'll see them a little bit, but they're kind of now focused on that. So even in that example like that, do they miss having that kind of community?
Mm, yeah,
Um, yeah, and it is interesting to see how some of them have talked about, what their next steps are, kind of evaluating, do I need to try to go to another team? Like what do I need to do? Am I going to make it? Um, it's, it's interesting to hear about how they have to think about that. And I haven't had, I think I will have a lot more thoughts as time goes on how
sure.
to encourage them in that and engage. But I think certainly going to try to
Yeah, we
encourage them that God's with them wherever they go.
one of the things we fail to recognize sometimes is that the competitive environment is such that even though you have quote unquote teammates, you're still competing against some to get that spot, the contract, to get invited back into the academy for the next year. And so different sometimes than maybe high school soccer or club soccer, where you can develop kind of different kind of friendships that aren't as competitive. I mean, there's still a level of competition, but the stakes are different, right? And those things are different here. So sometimes that can be a challenge as well. And always too, I always remind people that usually for the weekend tournaments that are being played, travel happens on Sunday, or recovery happens on Sunday. And so oftentimes, like you're right, these kids are not, these young men aren't able to be in faith communities. They're not able to be with their families, kind of in those typical ways that we think, and that increases the load of sacrifices for sure, for sure. And Ben, for me, that makes it more important for you and for others to be in the space, um, again, serving, encouraging, reflecting, and helping support. So yeah, thank you for the work that you're doing. And we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back in just a second with a little bit more with Ben Pflederer. Hello, everyone. Rev Brad here. I want to quickly tell you about our devotional book, The Light is Coming. Back in 2022, three of us with Soccer Chaplains United, Jordan Meadis, Kurt Trempert, and myself, came together to write a devotional for the Men's World Cup. Since then, we've come out with a revised version to make the Devo a bit more timeless. The Light is Coming covers 8 weeks with 3 different readings each week. We've got themes like waiting, joy, peace, love, and more. The Light is Coming. Check it out. It's available on Amazon. You can get it in paperback or Kindle format, and you can read this individually or use it as a small group or team study. If you're looking for some resources for your team, send us an email. We can work out a bulk deal too. The Light is Coming. See how faith can transform our football. All right, Ben. So the academy season kind of gives you really just a small break in the summer. Really just a month of July. They go from like August to mid-December, and then mid-January into late June in some cases. But you have some other hobbies and passions and things that you love doing, and there's some other things you're involved in right now. Feel free. Let's hear about some of these. I mean, you've already mentioned gardening, so I'm curious. Do you have a favorite vegetable, or like, are we talking corn? I mean, you're in Denver, so what are you gardening? What are you growing currently in your garden?
I grow, I mean, 100 different things. I have a few favorites. The biggest thing that I've enjoyed the last few years are melons, mostly cantaloupes. You just don't actually have, when you think of like honeydew cantaloupe at the
Hmm.
buffet, it's just
Yeah,
the worst thing ever.
yeah,
Just hard as a rock and like no
yes,
taste. But
yes.
the melons that I grow are, I had one this morning. They're just
Oh man,
so soft, so sweet. Like they're all, sometimes they're almost too sweet, but they're just excellent. And I grow some that are like mini cantaloupes that are orange, and then some that are, a bit bigger that are kind of more the like
Like,
honeydew.
are you going to farmer markets on certain days and like selling the produce of the ground that
I
you've
only
worked?
give away at this point,
Okay.
which is very satisfying. People very rarely leave empty-handed from our house for
I'm
about
still waiting for the
5 months of
invite.
the.
I'm still waiting for the invite. Maybe we'll bring some of our honey. My wife is going to be harvesting honey here in the next week. Maybe we'll bring a small jar of honey for in exchange for, we'll do the old barter thing.
I love it. Yeah. Uh, so that's kind of my favorite, a little more niche thing that I grow and enjoy. But yeah, just I mean, we've got 100 pumpkins and squash right now, just all around the yard and picked in the house, ready to be used. And my wife also makes some amazing pasta sauce and such with all the tomatoes we have. So it'll keep us for several months. So that is something that I picked up right before COVID, and then COVID just poured gasoline on it. So it's
This
it's a real
explains
obsession.
this explains the poster on the iPhone when I call you or you call me and I see this big Panama hat, or what kind of hat is this?
It's just yeah, it's like a straw like super coverage hat. We're
It's
just
it's 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 so funny to me. It's so funny to me to think of you in urban Denver gardening. Like, how much space do you have for gardening?
I mean, it is not a lot. I max it out pretty heavily. So it's crowded. But I would say it's like mm, my main area is 30 by 10 feet, but then now I've added like another like 4 or 5 beds in other areas of the yard. So Yeah. And that picture, that was what got me hooked. Our first year moving into this house, there was just a blank plot of land, and Stephanie was like, "Oh, we should do a little garden." I was like, "That'd be cool. I've never had a garden." And then we grew one watermelon plant, and then I would just go out and water it every day by hand, which I hadn't set up the sprinklers yet, and then we ended up with a 32-pound watermelon at the end
Oh
of the
wow.
season,
Oh wow.
and I was just like I was hooked. I was like, that is so satisfying.
Yeah.
Um, so where it all began.
That's great. That's great. Ben, talk a little bit about the church that you work at. How did you land there? What does your kind of week look like in terms of just, yeah, doing ministry amongst the church?
Yeah, so our church, Denver Presbyterian, so my wife and I, just to bridge the gap, after I'd lived in Nashville for a while, Stephanie was going to law school, starting law school at DU, and we were dating at the time, but I was ready to propose. So I moved out and followed her, proposed shortly after, and then we started going to that church pretty soon after that, now 8 years ago. And so did a lot of volunteer stuff for a long time, and then kind of volunteer led the youth group the year before last, and then just this last year been on staff, which is, yeah, just a great. It's part time, but definitely keeps me busy. We got about 30 35 kids between high school and middle school, and do usually one meeting a week, and I have meeting with the staff once a week. So it's great to be kind of integrated into the church in that way. And then, yeah, I try to do, we have a lot of great volunteer leaders. So learn a lot about kind of managing volunteers and
Nice.
uh, utilizing them and setting them up for success. And yeah, the kids, it's great. There's just been a lot of growth. I mean, especially in the 8 years, it's gone from like, there's probably only like a handful of kids in total between middle school and high school. But as the church has grown and matured, there's been a lot of increase in that. And so just getting to see how guys slowly kind of formed a real community of like discipleship, friendship. Um, that's my favorite thing, is kind of see that growth, see that connection, and so yeah, that kind of goes in my week. Also being at Denver Seminary, finishing up my Master of Divinity degree, that kind of takes up my Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday is mostly all church stuff, and then Thursday is chaplain stuff, and Fridays are a wild card. So,
Nice.
and then
Nice.
Sundays,
I
yeah,
like the
obviously
wild
church
card.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben, you mentioned one other thing that I'd love to hear more on, and that is that you and Stephanie foster. And what does fostering look like for you guys over the past few years? When did you start? And yeah, some of the motivation or heart, like what's been some of that? I know fostering can be a challenge, and I know it can be a beauty and a blessing at times too. But yeah, to maybe share a little bit more about fostering.
Yeah, the the short of it that's funny is that before dating and marrying Stephanie, had this thought in my mind that fostering people that were foster parents, you had to be a bad person. If you had
Oh.
asked me that
Hmm.
10 years ago, that's what I was saying. I was like, oh, yeah, foster parents, they're terrible people. I would never be a foster parent.
Hmm.
I just had even though I think I knew some like foster parents, like family friends, or like people that adopted, I just didn't have, because every movie, every
Yeah.
story is like the
Yeah.
foster parents are bad. So Stephanie was the great gift that she had worked for the Department of Human Services in South Carolina, where she lived right after college, and worked with the foster system there. That got her passionate about seeing how many kids need homes,
Hmm.
and then her, passion for that, desire to make that a kind of a foundational part of her family, our family, whatever family she was going to be part of. And I was, as she told me more and more about it, was totally on board. And I think just thinking about all the things that God calls us to in caring for the orphan and the widow, and yeah, it's a powerful way to see how how to be involved in the community that we're in different ways than we would normally, and yeah, to really care for some people that are a lot of times in some of their toughest moments of their life and as a youth. So that got us into it about a few years into our marriage. We started doing that. So now it's been 3-4 years. We've had like, I think Stephanie has the exact number, but 20 or so different kids in that time. A lot of those are short term, just a few days to a week, couple weeks. We've had a few now that have been like 6 months or more. And it's, I think all parenting is obviously a tough job and takes a lot of grace of the Lord and a lot of patience, a lot of everything. And yeah, doing that with somebody that, is temporarily going to be in your home, um, is challenging, but there's some really rewarding times and some sweet times, and seeing some of those relationships go beyond when they're at our house, being able to support them afterwards, and just the difference it can make for them to have a stable place, which is easy to take for granted, but it's all really makes me really grateful that we have the opportunity and the home and the space to do that, and reminds me of how fortunate I have been to have the family and upbringing and stability that I've had. And yeah, it's a powerful ministry, and we always encourage everybody to think about it. Everybody thinks it's takes a lot, but there's all kind of different forms you can do, and a lot more people could fit it into their life than realize, and be a great ministry of the church to grow, and a great thing for communities.
Yeah. Oh man. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for sharing your heart and Stephanie's heart with that as well. That is a special and unique place. So just pray that God blesses those things continually. Well, my friend, here we come down to the end of this, and there's a little game that I like to play with folks on the podcast called Crosses with Rev. I'm the Rev, so it's like, just to give you an image. It's just like serving balls in. I'm serving these questions in, and you're trying to answer them as quickly as possible to max out the number of points you can get. So here's kind of the rules to set up. It's a 60-second game. I will start. I've got a timer here on my phone, and then I go back and add cool little sound effects for everyone to enjoy, including a clicking, a ticking time clock and a whistle that blows. So you don't get to hear those things now, but if you listen to the podcast, which, that'll go into your report, I'm sure, is the amount of podcasts you've actually listened to of mine. But you will hear a ref whistle, and we'll have a little bit of fun with this. So there's two types of questions. There's an either or there's fill in the blank. Either ors and there's more of those. They're just kind of 1 point. The fill in the blanks are 3. If you get stuck, you can say pass. If you don't want to answer because you feel like it's too controversial, you could say pass. If there's an answer and you're like, if I were to ask you, I'm trying to, well, I don't want to give away anything, but if I were to ask you something and my two options aren't what you would want to answer, you can answer a third option. That's fine. It's all legitimizes and gets you the points. Okay. You just want to answer as many questions as you can. I've been criticized, thank you, Jubal, for not asking the questions quick enough. I'm going to go as fast as I can. There's always a little bit of technology lag, right? But I think we're on high speed internet here, and we'll get through this. And I've got questions listed here. The current leader is Ben Dudley, chaplain for the Portland Timbers, co-chaplain. He has 25 points. Last time he played February 2023. So I've got enough points for you to overtake Ben if you're sharp enough, if you're quick enough. All right. So I've got my questions ready. I've got my iPhone timer ready, which I won't start the timer until I've asked the first question. And then if I'm in the midst of asking the question and the timer goes off, it's almost like extra time, injury time. You still get to answer it. Okay. If I'm in the midst of, but if you're like languishing and you just answered and the timer goes off, we're done. Okay. So, but if I start into the question, you've got it, right?
I'm
All
on it.
right.
I'm up for it.
You're ready. Okay. Well, here we go. But you're sure you're ready? Because like I want to make sure.
I've got Google up and
Oh.
ready to roll.
All right. All right. Here we go. First question. Left-footed or right-footed?
Right-footed.
My favorite EPL team is
Fulham.
dribble, pass, or shoot.
Dribble.
Call or text.
Call.
Indy, Nashville, or Denver.
Indy.
Clint Dempsey or Landon Donovan.
Dempsey.
Hike or bike.
Hike.
Nike or Adidas. Nike or
Nike.
Adidas. Nike. Sorry, I didn't hear you. My favorite post-game meal is
Buffalo wings.
Xbox or PlayStation.
Xbox.
Messi or Ronaldo.
Messi. Easy.
Vandy or Denver Seminary.
Mandy.
Chickens or gardening.
Gardening.
NIV or ESV.
NIV.
442 or 433.
442.
I gave you that one because I kind of messed up, I think, hearing you on Nike or Adidas. So you answered too quick or it cut out. Oh, we didn't get through as many as I thought we would. 19. That's a solid effort. 19 points right there.
19 points?
Yeah, 19 points. 19 points. Let's see where that puts you
Seems respectable.
into the leaderboard. You're coming in right around 7th place. 7th place. So
All right. Sounds like you're getting a medal.
19 points. Yeah.
Participation medal.
I had a few more here to ask you though that I want to get into. And sometimes, another time that you're on, we'll definitely we'll ask a second set of questions but Bob Bradley or Bruce Arena?
I really love Bob. I like them both, but I really love Bob.
Okay. Mexico or Canada?
To beat or that I like more?
See, this is where I try and stump people. Is like, who would you rather play as the national team? Where would you rather vacation? You could take that question in many different ways.
I'll say Mexico.
All right. All right. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Coke. All right. All right. I like it. I like it. Well, good stuff, Ben. Good to be with you today. Ben, just as we're going out, as we're closing, here we are in the month of October. The academy season is freshly underway. Would you mind just closing us out with a prayer, maybe praying over the academy seasons for all the MLS academies and for the young student athletes that are working to learn, to grow as young people and somehow break into their dreams, break into their dreams of being a pro. Would you mind closing us out with a prayer today?
Yeah, absolutely. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to be your hands and feet to the people of soccer and especially to all these youth, these young men that are pursuing their dreams and working so hard and sacrificing a lot. We ask that you would be with them, that you would give them a sense of their identity beyond just soccer, that you would draw them to yourself in that, but that you would give them the ability to pursue excellence and, that there wouldn't be unnecessary obstacles there. And, especially ask for these Rapids guys that you would continue the work that you are clearly doing amongst them. And, just use the team not only for them to grow as soccer players, but to grow as men and to grow as followers of you. And please, for all these these other academies out there that you would, whether it's through chaplains or just parents, coaches, that you would provide people that would carry your love and message to them as well. And we just ask that your gospel would continue to go forth and bear fruit. We thank you again for all that you've done for us and for inviting us into this mission with you. We ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Oh, Ben, so good to be with you. My mouth is watering just thinking about some tasty melons. And so, I'm just imagining someday you'll invite me over, you and Steph will have me and my wife over maybe, and we will enjoy some of the fruits of your labor, some of the produce of your garden. And yes, we might even bring a little bit of our small batch honey that my wife's been working on, and we'll just see. All right.
Love it.
So good. So good to have you, Ben. Hey, thanks so much. Hey, everyone, you've been listening to the From the Touchline podcast. This is Rev Brad and Chaplain Ben. Thanks, and join us again next time.
Go USA.